Hi, and welcome to Comedy Recapped. Today we're going to explore 1987's Body Slam. We start off by watching a man named Harry drive his sports car down the highway, and once he gets in town, he shows off a little bit for a local woman. When he realizes that he misread the situation, he speeds off. Eventually, he makes his way to Beverly Hills, and he pulls into the valet parking, which turns out to be a repo man who speeds off with his car. Once he goes up to his office, he asks his secretary to handle some business for him, and he heads over to meet with Sheldon to speak about some legal matters. He starts off with his car being repossessed, then he talks about being evicted, and finally, there's the matter of a subpoena. Sheldon tries to ask why Harry always puts himself in these situations when he's actually a really smart and talented guy. Harry goes on and hands him some of his paperwork to handle, but Sheldon has something he wants to return. Apparently, one of Sheldon's biggest clients is asking him to handle a huge fundraiser, and he's appointing Harry as the entertainment manager. Harry hates the idea of working for the client, and he decides to handle his problems on his own. He hitches a ride on a motorcycle to the auto shop where his car has been repoed to, and he tries to smooth talk his way out of trouble with Scotty. He actually talks Scotty into letting him use an even fancier car to get around, and it's only as Harry drives off that Scotty realizes that he's been swindled. That night, Harry drives his date back to his house, and they are interrupted by Mr. Kim, who is there to retrieve money for his boss. The sum comes up to $67,000, and when Harry tries to talk his way out of paying, Mr. Kim calls up some muscle to help. He tries to take shelter in the car he technically stole, but the muscle guys end up pulling the car apart to pieces. The next day, Harry is at his office handling business, and he heads to the convention center to meet with Tom, the booking director that asked Sheldon to handle the fundraiser. Now Harry knows he needs all the help he can get, but Tom doesn't have time for Harry because he's handling a deal for Quick Rick, a local wrestler who needs a manager. With some quick thinking, Harry ends up breaking a good deal with Tom for Rick. When they leave, Rick starts to think about how Harry could help him. Harry tries to play hardball to get a better deal, but Rick has no problem with the terms. It's only after Rick's old manager shows up that Harry realizes that Rick is actually a professional wrestler. Later, Harry comes over to speak about the fundraiser for Sheldon. After realizing that Harry actually hasn't come up with any plans for the fundraiser, Sheldon gets all the guests to leave. Harry definitely has other priorities, though. He tries to recruit a beautiful woman that is tanning by the pool, but he ends up biting his own tongue once he finds out that she's actually the daughter of the woman that is running the fundraiser. Her name is Candace. The next day, Harry goes to handle his new client, Rick, and we see that Rick is actually trying to recruit someone to join Harry's repertoire. Harry is a little turned off of the idea after thinking about making the other manager mad, but money speaks louder than worry. While he goes to talk turkey with the wrestler, Rick goes to work out for a bit. When other wrestlers show up, he finds out that the previous manager is really upset with him. Rick tries to point out that he doesn't have to deal with guys like them anymore, and they move on to mess with Harry. After Rick scares the wrestlers off, Harry tries to find out how much trouble he might actually be in. Once that has been made clear, Harry heads to the car dealership to get his car back, and he heads to the wrestling match that is going on that night. Rick is wrestling with Tonga, and the two of them are owning the ring. After they win, Harry heads back to the locker room with them, and he finds out that a talk show actually wants to have him on the show to talk about the new tag team. Sure enough, Harry shows up and becomes officially part of the wrestling world. During the show, they introduce Captain Lou, who is the previous manager of Rick. Then we meet Tim, who handles some of the smaller wrestlers. And finally, Harry is brought out. The interview goes any way but good, and during a commercial break, Captain Lou ends up throwing Harry out of the interview ring. Later, Harry goes to report about the acts that he has booked for the fundraiser, where he comes up with all sorts of fictitious names. When he leaves, he runs into Candace, and he helps her with her bags. She sees right through his lies about the fundraiser and how he is with women, but he is relentless. The two of them end up going to get some lunch, and he tries to lay on the charm thick. He even tries to play up his sore neck, and Candace drives him to his house. After he plays up his injury some more, Candace goes to help him inside, and Mr. Kim and his muscles show up. They end up rolling Candace's mother's car over, and when Candace goes home to deal with her mother, she tries to tell Sheldon that she wants him off the fundraiser committee, but Sheldon still believes in him. When it comes time for the fundraiser, Harry actually talks Candace into leaving to enjoy some one-on-one time. As for the fundraiser, it's not a big success. Harry actually has to go undercover to get to the locker room of the wrestling match the next day, and there ends up being a last-minute change to the lineup. Captain Lou's fighters actually jump into the ring. As Tonga and Rick get their butts kicked, Harry tries to wake up the referee, But this doesn't work. By the end of the match, Harry gets thrown out of the ring head first. The next day, Harry goes to the ER to visit his wrestlers, leaving his car to get repoed yet again. When he meets with Rick and Tonga, he opens up to them about how he doesn't like watching people get beat up, and he tells them that they need to get new managers. After a while, Rick comes to Harry's house to try and talk him into managing them again. Harry tries to make him understand that they couldn't book an event even if he tried, but after thinking about how he started out, he comes up with an amazing idea. Harry heads to the band that he manages, and he asks them to help him out with his wrestling idea. He hopes to manage them and the wrestlers together, and this is all a part of his big plan. After getting them a bus to tour in, Harry takes the band and the wrestlers on the road. It ends up being a good move for all of them, and they sell out every event. Eventually, they come to a bump in their plan, as one of the event halls explains how they only get one night compared to the 2 they had originally planned. Harry takes this chance to promote a new idea. He hosts a contest that says he'll pay $1,000 for anyone that can pin Rick. Sure enough, this draws in an even bigger crowd, which covers all the money they lost out and more. One of the guys ends up posing a threat to Rick and Tonga, but with the help of the band, they rock the house and beat the contenders. After bringing in a good amount of money, they start to upgrade the equipment they're working with. And with a new RV for the group, they continue their tour. Fame seems to be following them all throughout the country. After being put on the cover of the Rolling Stones, Rick and the others are happy and content with where they are. But Harry has one more goal to reach. He wants Rick and Tonga to take the tag team championship, and he goes back to the wrestling talk show to promote his fighters and taunt Captain Lou. After setting up a fight where the loser has to leave the wrestling world, Captain Lou seems a little standoffish. But it's all on the line now. Afterwards, Harry decides to see Candace, and he tries to apologize for everything before moving on to what he hopes for the 2 of them. When it's time for the big event, the local arena is completely sold out as fans pour in to watch the wrestlers. Harry does everything he can to avoid trouble, but trouble just keeps finding him. This time it's Mr. Kim and his muscle again, but he knows that Harry is in line to make some big bucks that night. Harry finally stands up to Mr. Kim, and he's had enough of replacing cars. Inside the arena, wrestling legends sit ringside as they listen to the band warm up the crowd before the main event. In the locker room, Rick and Tonga assure Harry that they are going to win this thing. Meanwhile, a brawl starts in the crowd, and Harry rushes out with his wrestlers. They immediately hop into the ring to handle business, and things don't look too good for them at first. In a final show of strength, Tonga tags Rick into the ring, and he goes crazy on the opposition. After Tonga takes a second to regain some of his energy, he comes back into the ring, and the 2 men finish their opponents with some body slams and a pin. With that, Rick and Tonga are named the new tag team wrestling champions, and Harry gains all of the contracts for Captain Lou's wrestlers. For a sports film based on wrestling, this movie is definitely a win when it comes to 80s comedy and hairband rock. If you've enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single video. Thanks for watching.